Welcome, everybody. We'll be getting started here in just a couple of minutes. Looking forward to this conversation. See a couple people I already know. That's always great. A couple people I don't know. That's awesome as well. I always love it when that happens. So looking forward to this conversation. Cindy, you got a new background. That looks amazing. That is really good. Wow. Love it. If I don't call on you, it's not because I'm trying to be rude, by the way. It just means you're not showing up on my screen as we let a bunch of people in here a minute. So I only have a small screen and see a few people, but not everybody. So glad to have you guys joining us today and looking forward to conversations. I'm going to go ahead and spotlight Todd and myself while we're letting everybody come on in just a moment. So we'll do our basic introductions, let you guys know who we are. Some of you know us, some of you don't. And then we'll kind of kick off the conversation from there. So, Todd, good to see you. How are you doing, sir?
Excellent. Excellent. We
Good,
broke
good.
40 degrees today in Michigan.
Oh, I won't tell you that it's then 69 degrees and sunny down here, you know. So, yeah, by the way, I'd love to hear from you guys if you wouldn't mind if you're joining us. Tell us in the chat whereabouts in the world you're joining us from. I would love to see that. We love to see that comes in. Dale, I know is in Grand Rapids, Ohio, not Michigan. So I always appreciate you adding that, Dale. Always remember that. Oklahoma, Georgia, Birmingham, Oregon, Belgium.
Belgium.
All right. Chris, I saw
Wow.
you pop up, Chris. That's amazing. Yes. Oh, I love it. One of these days, Chris, I got to figure out how to come have dinner with you just because I've never been to Belgium. It sounds like fun, right? You know? Awesome. Florida, Muskegon. Yeah, 44 in Muskegon, man. That's a heat wave. Wow. Wow, that's amazing. Got Bob from Jenison, all that. Some North Carolina. I love it. Well, let's kick things off with introductions. Again, I know some of you, but not all of you, and this is a little different topic than sometimes we chat about. So, my name's Jonathan Mast. I am an AI coach and consultant, and massive believer that AI is a great tool. So I'm happy to talk to those of you that don't agree with me. That's perfectly fine. But hopefully today I can share with you some perspectives on that. And I've got with me today Todd. Todd and I have known each other for goodness about a decade, I want to say, if I'm not right. Am I close to that, Todd, you
Yeah,
think?
yeah, I would say so.
And so, Todd, why don't you introduce yourself to everybody since you and I will be having a big part of this conversation?
Absolutely. My name is Todd Hendricks, and I am the owner and solo entrepreneur of People First Coaching and Consulting. And Jonathan, like he said, we've known each other for probably a decade. Both believers in Christ. And
Yes.
should we get into the zombies already, Jonathan? Like,
If you
kind of that's
want, I don't care, no problem.
so that's kind of where this all started. Jonathan is tip of the spear in AI. So a little plug for Jonathan. He is tip of the spear in the AI industry and getting that going for businesses and how to leverage that for your business. And being that Jonathan and I are friends, we have conversation about that. And I don't know, about a year ago, I was like, yeah, AI, that's from the devil. That's going to take over the world. They're going to have zombies and robots with laser eyeballs, and they're going to come knocking on your door and that sort of thing. And Jonathan, see that face he's making right now, literally laughed at me and said, Todd, that's not what it is. It's not. And I was like, nope, I'm not doing it. I'm not doing it. And Jonathan slowly started to show me the ropes of ChatGPT and some other AI things, and really kind of showed me what a useful tool it can be. And I guess now I'm a convert, Jonathan.
Awesome. Well, the first part being a Christian is more important. Just so you guys know, if you're joining us today, what are we going to talk about? We're going to have a discussion, and Todd and I are going to chat, and then we are going to have an open Q&A as well. We've got some time set aside for that. We want to literally have an open discussion about the concerns that people have about AI and faith. I'll be real candid. My goal isn't to convince you that you're wrong and I'm right, and I hope your goal isn't to do the same for me. But I'd love to have an open conversation because I'll be candid with you. The only people that have told me I'm going to hell in the last couple of months are other Christians that found out I was using AI. And that I think is just notable for the consternation that AI causes. I'd love to tell you, by the way, that I'm joking. I'm not. And we'll share with you where that comes in. I also hope to open some of your eyes by sharing with you ways in which I'm using AI. I readily admit I do use it. It is part of my faith journey, and I believe it helps out a lot. But I want to be very clear and respectful that if you don't agree with that, that's okay. This is not about telling anybody that you're wrong or beating you up. I'm hoping, though, that if you aren't necessarily in favor of it, that you may leave this discussion with at least the thought and being open to that maybe this is a tool that we can use for good purposes. And if you're joining us and you're just curious about how to use AI in your faith journey, I'm hoping that Todd and I can share some things that we're using it for that cause you to go, wow, this is really interesting. And again, I do want to encourage you, we are going to have a conversation, so we'll open up for some Q&A as well. But I think, Todd, probably makes sense. Let's dive into kind of maybe where some of this started.
Mm,
And do you mind, since I'm kind of the one that led you to AI, if I start with that? Is that okay?
absolutely. Let's go for
All
it.
right. So a little history about me. Some of you know, some of you don't. I am, I don't know, sorry, I say confirmed. That's right. I got diagnosed with ADD when I was 43 years old. That was 12 years ago, almost 13 years ago. And I embody that in the most true way possible. I believe, and Todd knows, Todd's my mindset coach. He knows. Uh, I believe, though, that it is an absolute gift from God that I have that because my mind is unique in the way that it works. And what happened along the way when ChatGPT came out a couple years ago and started an interface that we could work on, I found that it was just a tool that fit my ADD brain really well and allowed me to get a lot of stuff done. And it didn't take too long. I started using it in business, and it didn't take too long. And I started seeing some crossover for faith. And one of the areas for me, and again, you'll find I'm super transparent. So that I struggle with, I believe, and I absolutely believe that for my life, God wants me to pray more and wants me to be a prayer warrior. I've always felt that prayer is immensely powerful, but I also have one major Achilles heel when it comes to prayer. And that's it. When I close my eyes, my brain starts wandering. And so when I start having prayer, very candidly, I mean, one of my most common prayers is, Lord, I'm sorry, I forgot again where I was at. Let's get back to what we were talking about. And one of the things that I found super helpful is, especially in my daily devotions, is to actually write out prayers. Because if I read those prayers, to me, based on how my brain works, that has proven to be really, really helpful for me to stay focused. And I've seen a difference in my prayer life. It's get me more connected. So I started doing that. And by the way, I'm going to share with you the tool that I use to do that. It's in ChatGPT. And for any of you that are concerned about it, I'm also going to share with you all of the underlying training data that I've used. I'll explain what all that means in a moment. So if you're wondering, uh-oh, Jonathan, is this, what do you program it with? You'll see that. I also use it a lot when it comes to my Bible study because I'm a curious man, and a lot of times I like to know background information. So just the other day, I was sitting in church, and the pastor was talking about how Christ met with or Jesus when he was on earth met with the tax collectors and that. And I remember hearing this, and he was talking about what a big deal it was that Jesus took time to eat dinner with the tax collectors. And I'm like, well, I got to admit, no offense to anybody on the call, if you work for the IRS, it's not generally who I consider to be my best friends, but I don't have like disdain for anybody that's in the tax department. It's not, I don't think you're a bad person, but I use ChatGPT to better understand that context from the Romans, why were tax collectors despised and what was going on and what was the significance that Christ spent time with them. And that to me was really important and kind of fleshing out and making that opportunity more real than anything else. A couple findings that I've had, and Todd, I'll let you jump in. I have found that one of the real great things about AI is that AI is not judgmental at all. So when I have questions about things, it just presents me with answers, and it really is open for my discernment to decide what I want to believe. The other day in devotions, I was reading a passage, and there appeared to be a contradiction. We've probably all seen those where you read a passage and you're like, hang on, that kind of seems like it contradicts itself. I'm not really sure. So I just asked ChatGPT to help me understand from Bible scholar perspective, did this disagree? Was this a problem? Was it a conflict or was it not? And it helped me understand that, to realize that here are the perspectives that different scholars have had. Here's where different theologians fall in it. And I like that a lot because it just helped me understand that passage a little bit more. Todd, I know you've done some similar stuff in some of your Bible study. Can you share some of your perspective, and then we'll actually go in and give some examples in ChatGPT. We'll share our screen here in a minute.
Sure, absolutely. I'm looking on the screen right now, and I see Reverend Lane up there. I see Reverend Otten up there, and man, it is great to see those guys. And I'd love to ask them a bunch of questions, but then I know, man, they are super busy. They're super busy, and I can't always have access to them because there's 30 other people who are contacting them, emailing them, and asking them questions throughout the week. And on Sunday morning, of course, nine waiting to shake their hands after church and stuff like that. So what I have found, and Jonathan, you kind of spoke to this a minute ago, is using resources that I might not necessarily understand how to use. And I think this would go for maybe a new believer who doesn't know how to cross-reference their Bible, who might not understand how to use a commentary, who might not understand, using topical indexes or concordances or something like that. But everybody knows how to Google something. And that's
Mm.
basically what using ChatGPT is. You just punch it in and it will give you an answer. Now, I have experimented with this. I've used a couple different forms of AI to see the different responses I get. All of them I feel have been accurate, yet somewhat different in their wording and the things that they say to me. So I think this is an incredible tool for like my daughters. I have two daughters who are teenagers. One's going to be a teenager this weekend. That's crazy. Anyways,
Good luck, Todd.
but thank you. Can we have a prayer for me right
No
now?
doubt.
But my daughters, God bless them both, have taken to doing their own Bible studies. And if you have kids, sometimes your kids don't want to ask you questions about the Bible because then dad's going to break into a 30-minute sermon about this, that, and the other. And I really just want to find an answer on my own. This provides an easy tool for them to be like, I don't understand this passage, but I don't want to ask dad, or dad's not around, or, I just don't want to talk to dad about this right now. And I get that. Some kids want to own their own Bible study and not have to always rely on their parents. So this could be a tool that they could use and maybe get a little bit better understanding.
Absolutely, absolutely. Well, let's dive in here. Would love to hear if you guys have any questions or concerns. Todd and I will try to be monitoring the chat. I'll be honest, it's hard to do as we're going through. So if we miss something, we will get back to you guys on it. Also want to let you know, just a bit of housekeeping, that we will send out a replay of this to everybody that registered. So if you're joining us late, or if you know somebody that needs to see this, you can share it with them. Todd and I are not doing this. I know we charge $10 to do this just to help cover some costs, but we're not doing this to get rich. So if you want to share it with anybody, that is not a problem. I don't have any issue with that whatsoever. Our goal here is to try to have a discussion. And candidly, one of the topics Todd and I talked about is, if we do this for free, will anybody show up? And we're like, I don't know. Why don't we charge $10? Because then at least they're a little invested.
Mm.
So that's what's behind it from our perspective. But let's go ahead and dive in. I want to share a couple things with you, if I can figure out where the share button is on my screen. There we go. So the first thing I want to do, and by the way, again, I will share these resources with everybody so you'll have them. You do not need to use them, but I want to give you that opportunity. This is what's called a custom GPT. And a custom GPT, you guys may be familiar with ChatGPT. It's one of the big programs that's out there. A custom one is just a custom trained version of that. So it still has all of ChatGPT's stuff with it. And I'm going to put the link here in the comments. And by the way, as I said, in the replay, I will share with you guys all of the underlying training data on this. I'll show it to you now, but I'll put it all in a Google Doc and share it with you. So this is what I use, and I have shared it, which is, by the way, it has a start button in Spanish, English, and in French, in case you're wondering what those other two words are. I don't speak Spanish and French, so if they're wrong, I apologize. That's what other users have told me I should have in there. So Chris is laughing at me. If I'm wrong, Chris, I apologize. Um, Prayercraft is literally trained on the way that Christ taught us to pray and passages in the Bible about prayer, primarily New Testament based. And I'm going to just begin to show you what it, I guess I have to log into the right screen first. Let me change my account so I can actually log in and show that to you. Hang on here a minute. There we go. Sometimes it gets picky. So I'm going to just show you the data behind it so you get an idea. So I've got just a few security instructions at the beginning. So it talks about its name. Its name is Prayercraft. Its purpose is to generate biblically grounded, compassionate prayers that help users deepen their relationship with God through authentic, meaningful communication. What's its foundation? Trinitarian perspective, non-denominational, biblically centered, focused on personal relationship with God, Jesus, and the Holy Spirit. Part of the reason I'm sharing this, by the way, is you guys can build your own version of this if you want, and you can make any changes. So if you're like Jonathan, I'm very much into, I'll pick my mother-in-law, into the Lutheran denomination, and I want it to be based on that. No problem. You could update this, and you could then have it based upon those doctrines as well if you wanted to. I picked a communication style of Craig Groeschel. Craig happens to be a very popular US-based pastor. Some of you may or may not be familiar with him. I believe it's non-denom. I'm not even 100% sure, but Craig is very approachable, and that's the reason I picked him, not so much for his faith. And notice the communication style here is Craig Groeschel, not the prayer stuff itself. We're just basing it on the way it communicates. What does that mean? That means things like it's conversational and authentic. It's direct and purposeful. I have ADD. I don't like to beat around the bush. If I'm doing something, just tell me. It's relatable and down to earth, and it uses everyday language. I will readily admit I am not a big fan of the old King James Bible. I don't like the these and thous. Not saying there's anything wrong with it, but it's kind of like different music. We all have different music that we like in different music styles that we like. I don't like rap at all, for the record, but I don't think that rap is evil because I know there are some rap Christian songs that are probably worshipful. I just don't want to listen to them because I don't like them, if that makes sense. And so again, this is the type of thing you could do. The communication principles, it's based on clarity of purpose. Every prayer should have a clear spiritual intention, help users understand what they're communicating to God, provide context that makes prayer meaningful, emotional entanglement, connect emotional experiences with spiritual truths, use relatable real world examples, balance vulnerability and hope, avoid religious cliches, practical spirituality. I won't read all those through, but these are all the things that we've programmed in to this, even some tone variations, intellectual and spiritual approach. For example, blend theological depth with accessibility. In other words, don't get me too deep in the weeds because I might get confused. Um, Use rhetorical questions to engage, provide concise, memorable scripts. I did that. Spiritual insights. I can't read today. And then it's modeled mainly after two primary prayers. The Lord's Prayer, based on the way it's presented in Matthew 6, 9 through 13. And then one of my favorite passages in the entire Bible, which is Philippians 4, 6, and 7. And that's based upon, if you're not familiar with it, it's basically bring everything to God with thanksgiving. By the way, that's a phrase I think we all miss in that passage, and that God will then bring us and surround us with his peace. So I love that. So I included that in there. So anyway, I will share all of this with you. You guys will have access to all that. And then I uploaded just some basic training stuff, which I'll also share with you. This was done with research, biblical prayer models, prayer project. This is about this one, and the enhance that security instructions so that people don't steal all this, but I'm going to give it to you guys anyway. Biblically based theology for prayer, and biblically based, and I can't read the whole thing, spiritual something for prayer. I'll give you those documents. I'll send those to you. You guys can look at them and change them as you are interested. But let's take a look and see how this works and how I use this on a regular basis. So this morning was a great example. I was feeling gratitude, get done with my devotions. I didn't have a particular topic. I read the little prayer as part of my devotional, but I didn't feel like I was done with God for the day, so to speak. I wasn't done with that time. And so I wanted to go a little deeper in prayer. And the only word that could come to my mind was gratitude. So I literally did just this and typed in gratitude, trying to make sure I spell it right, and said go. And what Prayercraft is designed to do is to give me a prayer based on gratitude. And by the way, if you don't like the first prayer that comes up, you can try again. You can change the words. You don't have to use any of this. But I'll just read this one to give you guys a little bit of perspective of what it comes up with. And again, you can change things to your personal preferences or your personal denominational beliefs or anything like that if you want. I've tried to keep this really, really simple. Let's let it finish there. Okay. So because I'm going to read a prayer, I'm going to take off my hat, but I'm going to go ahead and read this one. Heavenly Father, you are holy and worthy of all my praise. There is no one like you, full of mercy, faithful through every season, and endlessly kind. Today, I pause to acknowledge who you are, my creator, my sustainer, my redeemer. Your name is above every name, and I am in awe that I get to call you Father. Let your kingdom come in my life, in your thoughts, my choices, and my relationships. Help me align my heart with yours. Even when I don't understand the why, help me trust the who. I want your will, not mine, because your will is good, it's perfect, and it's always working for my ultimate good. Thank you for providing me for what I need today, not just physically, but spiritually. Thank you for being my source of strength, peace, and purpose. Thank you for the unseen ways you've protected and guided me, for every breath you've given me freely. I'm grateful for the big wins and the quiet mercies. Forgive me, Lord, for the times I've taken your blessings for granted and let ingratitude grow in my heart. And help me forgive quickly, love freely, and extend the same grace that I've received from you. Lead me away from the paths that pull me from you. Deliver me from anything that keeps me stuck in fear, pride, or bitterness. I want to walk in freedom, the kind only you can give. Because yours is the kingdom, the power, and the glory forever. In Jesus' name I pray. Amen. Sorry, guys. I'm also the emotional one in the call. So when it comes to faith stuff, I will get teary and emotional very, very quickly. But that's just an example. Not saying it's a perfect example. I haven't pre-done any of this because I want everybody to see it real live, how we're using it and what's happening. This is an example of how I use prayer on a regular basis. I'm going to go to Todd. Todd's got a couple of prompts. And Todd, if you don't mind, I'll go ahead and share those here a minute.
Yeah.
Of course, I had them loaded up and now I got
I'm
rid
putting
of
them in the
them.
chat for you right now.
Oh, you rock, sir. Appreciate
There you
it.
go.
So you want to tell us a little bit about these and we'll walk through these. You want to explain where these kind
Yeah,
of come from?
absolutely. So let's just do the first one first. Number one, it's in the chat. So if anybody wants to grab those, they can. And this is just something that came up. It actually spawned from a secular movie that we were watching years ago called Body of Lies with Leonardo DiCaprio. He plays this spy in the Middle East, and in one of the scenes in the movie, there's kind of a big heavy in the movie, and he is kind of asserting authority over a younger man in the movie, and the younger man in the movie wraps his arm or gets on his knees and wraps his arm around the thigh of the big heavy guy, and I was like, that's interesting. I think there's something like that in the Bible. And sure enough, there was something about that in Abraham. And so I was like, I wonder what the context of that is. And so I just put it into ChatGPT and I was like, I don't understand the context of it. I've read the cross notes. The cross notes don't give me the cultural context of what's going on with that. I'm not seeing anything in the commentaries about that. So I put it in and let's see what pops.
All right, let's do it. Here we go. Oops, hang on. I pasted in a prompt. That may screw up. Let me stop that here a minute. I was sharing in the chat the link to the prompt that I included, or the custom GPT, and I shared that. There we go. So one thing I want to notice here that Todd's not like getting into any custom formulas and he's not overthinking this. He's just literally asking a question. And of course, whenever we do things live, ChatGPT does this and it sits here and thinks and wonders what's going on. So we sometimes run into that while we're doing that, and ChatGPT seems to be having some issues, which it does sometimes. You can use these prompts in any model you want. So I'm going to pop over to Gemini real quick. If you use Google at all, you may be familiar with Gemini and you probably have access to it. The same exact prompt can be pasted and you're going to get slightly different answers. But again, different things can take place here. I'm going to zoom in just a little bit so this is a little easier to read. I don't know about you, but my old eyes don't like reading that. So Todd, you want to kind of take it from there with what's coming up and
absolutely.
what your perspectives are?
One of the first things that I noticed, and this is pulling up very similar information than what I found earlier on, and is the first bullet point under number one, symbolism of the thigh and loins. In ancient Near Eastern cultures, including that of the Israelites, the thigh and by extension the loins were considered potent symbols of strength, vitality, and especially procreation and lineage. The area was closely associated with the continuation of the family line and future generations. And I was like, okay, so there is some sort of emotional or spiritual connection for the people of that time for placing their hand under the thigh of somebody who may be giving them a blessing. So if we go down to number two, that kind of gets into that, where it says the first bullet point actually, the second bullet point probably emphasizes that a little bit better. This act could symbolize that the oath taker understood the weight of their promise in relation to the patriarch's legacy and the fulfillments of God's promise. So this gave me a better understanding of like as an American in 2025, why in the world would I place my hand under somebody else's thigh? That doesn't make any sense to me. But this gives me some historical and cultural context of, oh, there is a rationale behind that. It was part of that culture. And then that gave me a little bit better understanding of we were watching that movie of maybe those things are still taking place in that part of the world because that's part of that culture that always just has existed. So it gives me an understanding that I didn't have before and helps me, I guess, have a deeper understanding of the scriptures because that wasn't coming out of my NIV, that wasn't coming out of my Matthew Henry. I wasn't getting that with my cross references, but now this makes a little bit more sense to me. And for me, as a studier of the word, the why is always incredibly important. Just another example, we're coming up to Easter in a couple weeks, and I saw something online years ago about when Jesus rose from the tomb, and his cloths that were over his body were folded neatly in place on the tomb. And I thought, okay, whatever. So Jesus is a neat freak. I'm good with that. Well, there is context to that. In that time, in that Jewish tradition, if they were at a dinner, there were usually table servants who would come and clean up the dishes or do whatever. And if you folded your napkin or your tablecloth and placed it on your spot, that was an unwritten or an unspoken rule to the table servants. I'm coming back. Don't clear my stuff. So now, if we think about that, Jesus folded his grave cloths and placed them on the stone where he rose. That means I'm coming back. Wow, that just makes this scripture come alive to me. So this was really helpful for me. I don't know if you want to jump into the second prompt,
Yeah,
Jonathan,
let
that
me
I
go
put up there.
reshare again. I just thought I'd unshare for a moment. We'll go into the second
Yeah.
one.
And
Absolutely.
the,
And we'll keep in Gemini just because it's there. We did, by the way, ChatGPT came up with very similar stuff, just so you guys have that, and you can use much like you might use multiple, commentaries, you can use different
mhm.
versions of AI as well. You're going to get similar type experience with that. So let's go ahead and let's go to, I'm going to use an entirely different one that I haven't tried. If you guys don't have access and you're looking for free access, if you've got a Facebook account, a LinkedIn account, or I'm sorry, Facebook and Instagram account, you have access to Metas.ai. I have never, by the way, tried this. So we're flying blind here, but I'm
Ooh.
pretty confident we're going to be okay. Let's go ahead and try this prompt. Do you want to explain this one a little bit, Todd?
Yes, this one I approached as if I was a new believer. And as a new believer who does not have a lot of understanding about the Trinity or kind of how God works, I was like, okay, John 1:1, yeah, that's the one. In the beginning was the Word, and the Word was with God, and the Word was God. And he was with God in the beginning. I'm confused by that. Can you explain to me what that means? As a new believer, that's a lot of with and was and is and all that other stuff. So, how can we understand what this passage means? And this, as a new believer, would probably give me a lot of context because, sometimes even Christians, I mean, let's do this. Put a one in the chat if you have heard the gospel and the Trinity explained with the egg analogy. Oh, yeah, here we go. All one, yes. And I've heard that egg analogy used a lot of times. And I've heard some people say, that's horrible. That makes no sense. I don't get that at all. So let's just use plain language and ask, what does this mean? And what I like about all of the AI resources is, Jonathan, why don't you explain how AI works for those of us who don't fully understand? Is it like reading somebody's brain, or is it
Good
scanning
question.
the universe and aliens are intercepting this with their zombie eyes?
Well, I know you used to feel that way because we had that discussion, but not, yeah, I'm picking on you. Uh, AI has essentially been trained on every book in every library, and that includes the Bible and every possible variation of the Bible, in most cases, the books that were behind that, the writings that were behind it. All of that data has been basically sucked up and stored in its memory. Now, what it hasn't done is, if you've ever been to a bookstore and you've looked, even in a Christian bookstore, you look on a topic, you may find books that disagree with each other.
Mhm.
And nobody told AI which one was right. And so AI does sometimes get confused. The other thing to remember is that AI has been taught, because the developers want us to use it, it's been taught to make assumptions to fill in gaps. So if we don't give it some information, it's going to fill that in and make assumptions. We know what happens when we assume. We resemble the southbound end of a northbound mule. And so we'd want to make sure that we're not doing that, and by giving it relevant context. The same way that we're taught when we're studying the Bible, understand the context. We want to do that same thing as we're talking here. So, Todd, I don't know how this response comes back, but it looks on a quick scan like I would expect an AI to respond based on this. It's explaining what, in the beginning, and what the word means in Greek and that type of stuff. From your perspective, nothing like putting you on the spot and going, "Hey, read this. What do you think?"
Yeah.
Is this in line with what you were expecting?
Yes, it is. It is. And what I did with the prompt specifically is, if you go back up to the very top of the prompt, Jonathan, uh, I said in the Christian Bible. So I was trying to be specific in which Bible I would, because I mean there's a lot of books out there that are called the Bible that are not necessarily the Christian Bible, and so I wanted to be specific in that and get that specific information in this prompt. And what I like about this one, and again, this is one that we haven't seen before, but I like how it breaks it down at the bottom with the bullet points, numbers 1, 2, and 3. It gives the Trinitarian view, the Christological debates, and symbolic and metaphorical interpretations. Because I'm noticing this in the chat, some people like the egg analogy, some people necessarily didn't like the egg analogy. We're all going to think about something a little bit different, and to what makes sense to me might not make sense to you, Jonathan. And so having
Absolutely.
these multiple viewpoints of the same topic and explaining it in a little bit different ways is going to connect on us, because I mean your background knowledge is going to be different than what my background knowledge is. So I found
Absolutely.
this as something really good. um, I actually used this with somebody who was over to, I won't name this person, but somebody was over to our house visiting, and I was explaining this ChatGPT because I was getting prepared for this, and they were like, "Well, I've never, isn't that kind of bad and naughty stuff? Isn't it evil?" And I was like, "No, well, let me show you. I got my computer up right here." So I brought them over to my computer and I said, "What question do you have about this topic?" And I punched it in and it came up. And that person was like, "Huh, it's not reading my brain." This is like, no, it's
No, it's
kind of
not.
cool, isn't it?
Yeah, so there's a lot of tools. We're going to show you a couple of others, but before I move on, I want to give you just some of the major tools. If you're going, okay, Jonathan, I don't know which AI tools to use. So the one we're using right here is from Meta, the company behind Facebook and Instagram. And again, the reason I share this with you is if you don't have an account and you want one for free, this is a great one to go with. It's Meta.ai. You also can get free use on most of the others, including ChatGPT.com. Now, I have a paid plan, but you can access it for free, and you can even access the custom GPT that I shared on a free plan. You don't need to pay for anything there. Another really popular one that we talked about a little bit earlier is Gemini. It's gemini.google.com that you can go to. If you have a Gmail address, by the way, you have access to some of these tools for free that are from Gemini. Another common one that is out there that we talk about quite a bit is called Claude, Claude.ai. And let me just click to the new chat here. I don't even know what that was about. Hang on. My computer doesn't want to respond well, so no big deal. Um, but that's Claude. It's another great tool that's out there. And then another one that I use quite a bit if you're looking for more search-based stuff, I use one called Perplexity. What's neat about Perplexity is that it'll actually go out and do live searches before it compiles the data that it's looking for. So we could ask it, Todd, you remember what that question was, for example, that you asked and the guy's like, wow, it's not reading my mind. Do you remember the question at all that we could type into Perplexity or no?
It was not Bible related. It was
Oh, it wasn't. Okay.
it was actually
Fair enough.
about food.
Well, let's do this one. Let's just say, the question that comes up from some people is, help me understand I'm not trying to make any enemies here. The Trinity in the Bible. So I can type a really simple question, and what's going to happen here is it's now going to go out and it's going to do a search and then bring back answers. So the big difference between Perplexity and the ones that I've shown you is most of the others are using predefined knowledge that they have what we call their knowledge base. Perplexity has a knowledge base, but it's also using direct searches with the internet to pull information in. Now, one thing I want to remind everybody of is just because Todd and I are using these doesn't mean we believe every word that they're saying. This is like any type of search that you do. You need to use your own discernment. But I do believe that these tools, like a commentary or a Bible dictionary or things like that, can be really useful in helping us understand context of what we want. And you can see in here, we're talking about one God, three persons, the biblical basis behind that, the plurality of unity, the triadic formulas, divine relationships, roles within the Trinity. So again, lots of interesting stuff and different tools, again, that are very available to you that you may want to consider. So I saw Carla asked a really good question. I want to make sure we address, and that's what I'm going to actually stop the share and then I'll read that question, Carla. Oh, and just like that fast, I lost it. Hang on, let me find. There we go. What ethics or caution should we be aware of when using AI with a church, from pastors to ministries and communication teams? I I don't believe, and I'm not popular in this one, I'll say I don't believe that AI causes ethical issues. I believe life causes ethical issues, and AI is one of the things we use in life, and therefore it may have ethical issues, but I don't believe AI in and of itself brings those up. That's just my belief. You do not have to agree with that. Todd, I'd love your thought, but I know from my perspective, I think that the same caution that we would take in using any resource that's not the Bible itself, we would want to take when we're using AI to help us understand that. And we need to accept that there may be errors in that, just like there could be errors in any human written commentary, dictionary, whatever it is that we're reading that goes through. And I know some people are like, yes, but those books, the commentaries, they've been reviewed by a lot of people. So is this AI data. I mean, massive numbers of people have had input into this. So that's my thought. Todd, what are your thoughts when it comes to moral and ethical implications of using AI in church?
Yeah, no, that's really good, Jonathan. I was thinking kind of back to a year ago when you and I were beginning our conversations about AI and how I was kind of looking back being silly about it and being a little bit over dramatic, but you were very good in explaining away some of the fears that I had and understanding that, it is a tool. And I think, whatever you want to think about, like how many people choked on pizza across the world in the past 6 months and died. Does that make pizza bad? No, it just means that somebody choked on pizza and died. So using AI to do Bible study, and Jonathan, I had never seen you do a prayer like that before, like you did at the very beginning of the call. That was really interesting. And I think, GPS, we all use GPS on our phones. Well, GPS is
Mm-hmm.
plus or minus what, 3 meters, I think is what the standard is.
Yeah, right
So
now it's 9 feet. Yeah.
yeah. So GPS is going to get you home. Is it going to get you to park your car exactly in the garage? Maybe not, but it's going to get you really, really close. And then once you get really, really close, you can start to refine that on your own. And Jonathan, one of the things that you taught me about is hallucinations in AI.
Yes.
And if you could explain that a little bit, because that was something I didn't know about.
Yeah, it's actually an important concept to understand is that AI will occasionally just make things up, and we call that hallucinations. And this is again where your own personal discernment is important. I'll give you an example though of real technology that has this problem. So my birthday is on Friday, and my ops manager just sent me a cake. It was very sweet of her. She sent me a cake, and she had it delivered because she's remote, so she had it delivered by Instacart. And when Instacart came to my door, the delivery driver let me know that, hey, I made it here. I'm later than anticipated. Not that I knew she was coming, so it didn't matter. But she goes, GPS took me to the other side of town to the wrong address the first time. It hallucinated, it made a mistake. Those things happen with anything in life. I mean, if you've ever seen a book that's been printed and there's been errors, things happen. So be aware that, yes, we need to be, I guess, use the phrase trust but verify. We need to make sure. If we're talking about salvation oriented issues, I'm probably not going to be going to ChatGPT to confirm a lot of details related to that. I'm going to trust my Bible. But when I'm searching for answers to questions and ways to maybe explain the Trinity to a new believer, yeah, I'm going to try to figure out a way to do that. Or maybe my son's got a question about something and I'm not sure best to explain it. I'm going to use AI to help me do that. I want to understand the context. I'm going to use AI to help me do that. Those are things that we're going to do. Before we go into Q&A, I do want to share one other thing we haven't talked about at all, and Todd didn't even know I was going to share. So there's another way that I use AI that really I find to be just incredibly valuable to me personally. And I will readily admit I'm a sucker for music and worship. I absolutely adore. In fact, I often cry like a baby in church during it. I'll readily admit it. But I am in the middle of building out a process. I'm going to share this with you guys. You may not love the style, but I am going through the book of Proverbs, a book that I love to go through every year. I'm reading through the Proverbs and I'm building out songs on each of the Proverbs using this tool. It's called Riff Fusion, which I'll share with you. It's a free AI tool and it literally goes ahead and creates music for you. I'm going to share this playlist with you. I don't know if I can play it over Zoom, so I won't try. If you don't like country music, you won't like this. Let me warn you really fast because I'm a big fan of Toby Keith and I've based it on his musical style. It doesn't necessarily sound just like him. Cindy and I had this conversation the other day. I shared some of it and she listened to it. She goes, Jonathan, could we do it as a hymn instead? We could. I didn't. But I'm going to share this with you. The neat thing is let's say, unlike me, you like rap. You could actually use AI to write a rap song. Todd, do you really like rap?
Oh man, cross movement all day. Reverend Joe,
Okay.
you up there? You got me on cross movement, right? Yes.
So you
Christian
could
hip
use
hop.
it to do the same thing. And I'll show you what's going on behind this, just so you guys can see this real quick. Let me go. Oops. I didn't want to play it. Let me stop it so it's not in my ear. Let's try to see if I can open it up. Let's see. Where do I go to see the details? Here we go. Nope, not there. Let's go back to song. Sorry, guys, I'm not as familiar with this platform. You can see I've gotten through so far. I'm not very far through. I'm up through Proverbs 5, into Proverbs 5 at this point in time. But I'll just show you an example of what this looks like. So here's a song that I've got set up, and the sound. I'll just read it to you real quick. Create an anthemic modern worship track in a bright, urgent, and innovating mood using a major key, D or E major preferred. By the way, I'm not a music major. I don't even know what all that means, but I told it what I wanted. I basically gave myself, and then I had it write the lyrics based upon the Bible passage. By the way, as you listen to the lyrics, I used the New International Reader's Version, my choice to use in this case, not necessarily the Bible I use all the time. But if you're reading the lyrics and going, it messed those up, or it was just telling you what I based it on. But I'll read you just verse one in the chorus, and you guys can decide. This is based upon, really quickly, Proverbs 1, verse is 1 and how far? 1 through 7. So these are the words from Solomon's line: truth that has stood the test of time, laid out for the young and the wise, a crown on your head, a fire in your eyes. Understanding starts with fear, not judgment, but drawing near to the one who made the skies and the sea, the Holy One who's calling me. And then it goes into the chorus: stand in awe. This is where it all begins. Bow your heart, let your journey in. The voice of wisdom's calling out your name. Truth like lightning never fades. Stand in awe. This is holy ground where pride breaks and grace resounds. You won't find life until you see the fear of the Lord is the start of being free. Now, again, I'm not claiming this is a theologically perfect sound, but I will tell you that when I get in the car by myself and I crank it up because I like loud music, I'm singing, I'm raising my hand. I am absolutely worshiping as I listen to this. And I'm going to share this with you as an example. It doesn't mean it's something that you guys have to love or anything else, but I want to just share it with you so that you guys can get an example or an idea of how that works. So I will share that. And by the way, for Cindy, who loves hymns, you could do it in many, many other styles not just this one. So that is a playlist that'll continue to expand. If you save that, if you like it and go, wow, Jonathan, I like Toby Keith too. If you like this, I will be continuing to add to this playlist. You will be able to see it over time. And you can see I've been playing it a lot based on some of the numbers, and apparently a few other people have as well. So anyway, that's another way that we can use AI. And this to me is so cool because I am not a musician. I love worship, but I don't know how to write music. I mean, I stopped playing the piano because my hands are so big, my fingers started pushing down two black keys in one when I'd get up and play. And I was young, and my piano teacher told my mom, he goes, "This only happened once before, but if Jonathan would like to quit," and I'm like, "Yes, I'd like to quit." I was like fifth, sixth grade, and I'm like, "Yes, I'd like to quit." I wish I hadn't now, but that was younger. I'm not very musical, but I love the ability that AI has given me to do this, and again, to deepen my faith, to be in a way that resonates for me. It may not resonate for anyone else on this call, and that's okay, but it does for me. And I'm hoping that as Todd and I have shared some of this, it's helped open up some possibilities to you. We're going to go to Q&A, by the way, in just about 1 minute. So if you've got a question, raise your hand down below, and we'll make sure we call through. But I would love to have a discussion with some of you guys about your thoughts, pro or con, as you go through this. This would be this is designed to be a discussion, not just Todd and I preaching, but we wanted to share our perspective. And now we're going to go to Q&A. Todd, as we go to Q&A and we wait for some people to raise their hands, any additional thoughts, comments? I didn't mean to cut you off before I went there.
No, that's okay. I mean, since you did cut me off, maybe you could sing us a verse or two of that song that you just created.
If I could figure out how to share it, I would. I don't know you want to hear me sing because I will be off tune, but
Yeah, no, I
I
know there's somebody on the call I just scrolled through that knows all the musical theory in the world and could probably figure that out for you.
I'm sure they
Uh,
could. There are a lot of people here that know a lot more than I do, and I'm not saying these are going to be the next greatest hit. I don't care. These were designed for me, and I'm sharing them just because of the fact that, to me, they add value. So, how about you
yeah.
guys? How do you guys feel about this? We've saw lots of stuff in here. I've not had a chance to read all of the comments. We will. By the way, when we share the replay, I'm going to share all the transcript of what Todd and I have talked about, the Q&A. We're also going to share the transcript of the chat. So if there's something in there that you're like, oh man, I missed that, we'll share everything in there as well. So you guys will get access to that as well. So very, very cool stuff. I love the stuff you guys are doing. What questions do you have? What comments? Any input? Would love to hear from you. Davia, good to see you. Let's bring Davia up. We're going to add the spotlight in. There we go. What's on your mind?
I just have to say that I have been asking for proof, not necessarily proof, but just confirmation I'm in the right place. I'm journeying down the right path. I said it in the chat, so I have to say something to you, Todd. The story about the napkin with Jesus.
Mhm.
My daughter passed away 6 years ago last week.
Mm.
And I was actually taking her children, we were going to her funeral, and I was telling my grandchildren that story, that the best is yet to come. Just wait. We're going to fold our napkin and we'll be back. We'll be back together. So, out of all the stories you could have told today and picked, it just tells me I'm on the right path.
Well, that was not planned.
No,
So
I have not.
Holy Spirit, thank you for that one.
Thank you for sharing that, Davia. That's awesome. I appreciate that more than words can do. Danny, you've got some thoughts. What do you want to share with us, Danny?
Hey, good morning. Or good afternoon, I guess. What do you think about kind I kind of call it partnering with AI for teaching
Mm.
people, different things about the Bible, about the Word, all that stuff.
Yeah. Todd, do you want to take first and I'll jump in?
Yes, Danny, I don't know if this will make sense to you if you're a basketball fan or not, but there's always been players who are good off the bench, which means they don't play the first 5 minutes of the game because they need to sit and kind of get amped up a little bit, and then once they come in off the bench, they're fantastic. And that's because they kind of need time to see what the game is doing. They need to see what's developing. And what I have found is I have used AI, specifically ChatGPT, for ideas. And like once I get rolling, man, it's like the floodgates have opened, but sometimes I just need that little push and that start to get going. And then it's like, oh, there it is. That's the idea. That's the story. That's the thing that I needed. And so I have not personally used ChatGPT or any AI for teachings and ministry or anything like that, but I have used it for business, and getting some ideas flowing, I think, are fantastic. Now, I have also recently seen a lot of YouTube layovers where you've got two videos playing right next to each other, and there's a sermon from like 1985 that was recorded, and then there's a pastor last week who is preaching word for word the same sermon. Yep, that's going on. And I would caution against that. I would not say, pastors, I would not encourage you to say, hey, write me a sermon for Sunday because I want to go golfing today. Don't do that. Do your work. Be a minister of the word. But using it for ideas like, hey, there's this passage, Proverbs 1, verse 1 through 7. What are some key takeaways from those verses that people who are experiencing loss would benefit from hearing? And it'll give you some ideas. And then you can take those ideas and maybe write your sermon or prepare your teaching or ministry. I don't know. Is that connecting with what you're thinking about, Danny?
Not as much because I'm not a pastor.
Okay.
I just have an interest, and I have these thoughts that this is stuff people need to hear. I think I look at AI, yes, as a tool, but it allows people who've been silent, like with the music, to not be silent anymore. You don't have to play music or sing music or write music, but you can still create music. Well, you can still create teachings and sermons, if you will, or explanations, for different things.
I was going to share, Danny, that's kind of how I use it. I am not a pastor. I am not trained in anything theological at all. I'm an absolute Jesus freak. I'll admit that. And, I want to embody him. I want to be more like Christ. But sometimes I don't know how to share that. I don't know what to do. I grew up in a church where we talked about evangelism when it was time to put money in the plate. We never talked about it as far as doing anything. And I'm not trying to pick on my church, but that's the church I grew up in. And so learning evangelism, learning outreach has been very difficult for me. But one of the things that I try to do regularly, because I felt called to do so, is to share my journey. Not trying to say that it's Todd's journey or your journey, Danny, or anything else. And I readily admit I use AI to help me put words to that journey. I use it to help me say, okay, here's what I'm dealing with today. Here's where I'm at. Here's what I'm going through. It's one of the reasons I'm building these songs and Proverbs is I want to just share that. It's my journey. If it resonates with somebody, that's fantastic. If Cindy listens to it, and I'm picking on Cindy because we had a conversation about this the other day, and she goes, Jonathan, it's great, but I just don't really like country. Okay, no problem. That's fine. It's kind of like different radio stations are different for different people. But I do think it's an absolute great way to do that. I've also used it, when my sons had some questions about faith that I wasn't quite sure how to answer. I've used it to help, like Todd talked about, give me reference and give me resources to put that together based on my knowledge. So hopefully that's helpful.
Yeah, absolutely. Thanks.
Thank you. I appreciate you asking. That's great. Looks like next we have got Christina. Reverend Dennis, what's on your mind?
Hey, Jonathan, it's just Christina.
Okay. Want to be respectful, so.
I know. I thank you. In my Zion and a denomination I've been a part of, I'm fifth generation. We have two tiers of ministers. We have locals. They don't have to get any kind of seminary training or anything. And then we have the itinerant track. We're required to have a master's of divinity, and this has been in place since the 1800s. I have always incorporated technology and faith and ministry. I was running Facebook ads when Facebook ads first came out. And when Facebook pages came out, oh my God, everybody thought that's of the devil. And then somebody in earlier about streaming. Oh my God, I remember it was just horrible. We would have been better prepared for COVID had we done the things we should have been doing a decade ago. But my question, I want to build a custom GPT and tools that can help those that are pastoring churches that don't have a seminary education. There's so few people in my Zion now that will pastor that we have persons that don't have the advanced education, and God can use everybody. Don't get me wrong.
Absolutely.
We need to make sure that people are equipped with the tools that can help make the load lighter. One of the ways I do use ChatGPT for my sermons is that I'll write a sermon and I'll put it in ChatGPT, and ChatGPT will say, "Oh my God, lady, that's a good point, but you've said it like 30 times." And that helps. So my ultimate last question, those were all like comments. My last question, my real question is in the chat. I put, if we were making a custom GPT and we were using Bible translations, and it's something that we were going to share with someone or we were going to sell, should we only use translations that are in the public domain?
Great question. I'm not an attorney, so I can't give you all the answers. I will tell you that if it's not in the public domain, I don't know if ChatGPT will be familiar with it. If you've got a particular version, let's say that you're using through your denomination that you want to upload, you shouldn't have any issue with that as long as you aren't sharing it. The sharing is where the issue, I think, comes in.
Yeah.
Because at that point, then you're giving, most any Bible nowadays you buy is copywritten. And so you've got to, buy copies of it or whatever. What I found is that, like in training my GPTs, I was able to use full searchable stuff. As an example, not public domain, but like I mentioned, I use the NIRV, New International Readers version for the music I'm doing. That is not public domain, but it is publicly available without paying for it. So I didn't have any issue with giving those verses to ChatGPT to write the lyrics with or anything else, because I can go to Bible.com and see all of them. I don't have to, it's not something that's behind a paywall. If it were behind a paywall, I would not be comfortable doing that because I wouldn't want to do that. It's kind of like I have my books over here. You can't see them, but I have a lot of books that I buy and then I have in Kindle, and I can convert that Kindle book to a PDF and I can then use that as training data for my GPT. If it's just for me, I don't have any issue with that because I bought the book. If I'm going to share it with a bunch of other people that haven't bought the book, now I have a problem with that because I'm not respecting the author's copyright on it at that point in time. So does this delineation make sense the way I look at that?
It definitely does. And I know that before I create another digital product, that I definitely do need to make sure that I talk with an attorney, because my earlier digital products, when I first launched my company, are all in a copyrighted translation. I didn't realize that you couldn't use the NIV. And so I've had to go and update them. They were on social media graphics that I sold.
Yeah, I don't know about I don't know whether you can or can't, because and again, this is where I'm not an attorney. My hat doesn't say that, but if it did, that's what I put on right now. I'm not an attorney. It's publicly available. It's just not public domain, if that makes sense. I can go to Bible.com and I can read, like, I don't know, there's lots of different versions there. I don't know how many. I can use YouVersion and read lots of different versions. If I was reselling again in specific words, I don't know. Yeah, that'd be a question for an IP attorney, which I am definitely not. So
yeah, in that instance, and I'm only talking about for me and my company, in that instance, I was told I violated their copyright. And so I did have to go back and update it. So it was just always in my mind as I created Christian projects and products. But this helped tremendously. Jonathan, I have spent almost all day with you. I was in the earlier session. We got to stop.
I love that.
Thanks, Jonathan.
Thank you, Christina. I appreciate it. All right, Matt, you're up next. Matt, what's on your mind, sir?
Okay. Hey, appreciate you taking the time to share this. You were talking about the journey on AI. Everyone's journey is different. One of mine that whenever I first started using ChatGPT and went all in excited about it was how I saw people really developing the relationship side of it, and cause really would say, my GPT, my friend, my pet, like the relational side. What's your thoughts on that side of it?
I mean, Todd, I'd love your thoughts too. Mine real simply is I think if somebody finds it helpful to them in their life, that's fine. it's not for me to judge. You know, I've got a friend who is building out some AIs for dementia patients and giving those dementia patients an opportunity to have an AI, basically avatar that they can communicate with. We as humans, you know, my aunt suffered from dementia, and I know, you know, the 37th time that she'd go, I haven't seen my boys lately. And you'd go, well, Aunt Sharon, your boys were here 3 days ago. Oh yeah. And then a minute later, I haven't seen my boys in so long. We as humans get really frustrated with that because we're like, oh my goodness, we understand they have dementia, but AI doesn't care. It can answer
Yeah.
that question all day long and provide value. So from my perspective, and again, they're all different. If that provides value to that individual, makes them feel less lonely, am I worried whether they realize it's real or not? No, I think most humans are pretty good about that. I'm not going to get too out of whack. I know, you know, my background, I was a time in life when I had a lot of time on my hands and I spent a lot of time reading books, and I did it because it was an escape, you know, and I got to envision that. I don't think there's anything evil about that. You know, I was reading lots of fiction novels and stuff, and it
Yeah.
was fun. It's like watching a movie, but so I don't see an issue. Todd, what are your thoughts on that?
Great perspective.
Yeah, I have a friend who had to drive solo, like across 3 different states. It was like an 8 hour journey, and he's kind of a tech head, and decided to open up Chat GPT and you know, do all the like use your headphones in the car and have a conversation with Chat GPT for like 4 hours. And he said it was fascinating. It was like making a new friend.
Yeah.
The only thing that I would caution, and Jonathan, I'm going to go back to my, you know, robots with laser eyeballs and stuff,
Yep.
is I do feel there's an importance in having those relationships with real people in some way, shape, or form.
No
Like,
doubt. No
and
doubt.
that's my preference. Like, yes, I used AI today and it helped me tremendously. I would rather go to lunch with you, Matt,
Right.
you know, and
Mhm.
instead of going to lunch with AI.
For sure.
Yeah.
Yeah. And that's a great perspective. My wife is, you know, real cautious of it. And that's, I haven't known a good way to be able to explain that aspect to her. She's like, I get it for getting information, but it freaks her out to whenever you speak to it relationally.
Yeah.
Yeah. Thank you.
Yeah, it does. No, good question, Matt. I think it's a common one, so I'm glad you brought that up. Thank you. Joe, you're up next. What's on your mind, Joe?
Hey, good afternoon.
Good afternoon.
Stop it, Todd.
I love Joe. Joe, I love me some Joe Lane. I'm just saying. I'm so glad you're here, buddy.
So I do use AI and I use it a whole lot. You were talking about writing sermons. So I actually have AI write sermons often in styles of preachers that I love. So
Mhm.
like it'll actually write a sermon in the style of Andy Stanley, in the style of
Mhm.
HB Charles, in the style of whoever, right? What's interesting about that is it gives me all these multiple perspectives that it allows my brain to do things that it wouldn't normally do, to challenge me in my own thinking. So I just wanted to respond. Somebody said something about pastors, but my question is going to be about the algorithm learning you. But I also wanted to share that I use it to develop devotions for our church. So we have a weekly devotion based on my sermon every week that AI creates. I also use it to help with the song selections. And then there's another platform called Napkin.ai.
Mhm. I love
And
Napkin.
yeah, Napkin does infographics. So I
Mhm.
did a thing on Mary's washing Jesus's feet, and it was like all of the ways in which you worship, and it gave these different diagrams on how you look at that. But I just wanted to share that because it was out there. But my question is about the bot or whatever learning your algorithm. What can you talk about that a little bit?
As far as like your style and stuff like that, are you thinking,
Yeah,
Joe, or
exactly. Yep.
yeah, so you can train an AI model, well, at least you can train any chat GPT model to, we call it a custom GPT. That's like the prayer one that I just shared with you. You can train it on almost any data that you want to do anything. My team and I, we have over 200 of them, for example. Most of them are business related, but I have one, for example, that I use to help me write the lyrics for the songs that I just showed you, because I was doing it repeatedly and I'm like, man, this task, I'm going to be doing this. There's like 400 and some proverbs. It can take a long time. So I created a ChatGPT that I can now just feed those verses into it, and then it creates lyrics following what I want it to follow, following the guidelines I gave it, and it can do that on a repeated basis real easily. So I don't know if I'm answering your question, but it's definitely possible to do that.
You are, but I guess the other part of that is, does it do it on its own? Because I have found that, like, I've been writing and then it wrote something for me. I was doing a letter and I was having it draft, but it actually put my name in and stuff that I hadn't necessarily shared with it.
ChatGPT has what's called a memory feature, and mine is turned off because I do so much client work, so I don't keep it on. But if you have, by default, it is on, and it gets to know you over time. So it's going to say,
That's
okay,
right.
yep, your name is Joe, and Joe, I don't know you, but I'm assuming based on the fact that Todd knows you, you live in West Michigan somewhere, and so if you live in West Michigan, and you're a pastor and this and that, all of a sudden it will start learning that stuff about you, basically to help. It's not nefarious. It's really just to say, yeah, next time you write an email, it's going to go, it's going to sign it Joe Lane because it knows it's coming from you, as opposed to leaving it insert your name here type thing.
Yep, that's what it's doing. And then the last platform that I've seen is Pastors.ai. Are you familiar with that at all?
I am not. I've heard of it, but I have not looked at it at all.
Yeah, it's a paid subscription, but I used it for a little while in the free version. And what it does is you can drop your YouTube videos in. It transcribes everything, will produce all of this different stuff based on your stuff. And then it does protect the algorithm by training itself to learn your theology and learn all of that. So it's pretty awesome.
Yeah, it sounds very cool. Thanks for sharing that, Joe. I appreciate it. That's awesome.
I think a lot of people are weirded out by AI learning you, but your car has been learning how you drive since like 2010. Like literally adjusting the fuel injectors, the braking pressure, like that's been around for a long time.
Yeah. No, it's kind of like GPS. If you've ever noticed, I did this when we moved recently, and it took GPS about a month to realize that my home had changed. I didn't have to change it. It just realized that every day this is where I ended up going. And it asked me one day, should we update your home address? Oh, yeah, that'd be nice. I was wondering how to do that. I hadn't asked my kids yet how to do that in my phone. So it just did it for me. So those things have been happening, like I said, a long time. Great stuff. Well, Joe, nice to meet you. Thanks for joining us today. I really appreciate it. Carla, you are next. What's on your mind, Carla? You are muted, Carla.
Sorry, can you hear me now?
Loud and clear. Thank you.
Awesome. Good to see you, Jonathan and Todd. Thank you for your time today and all this awesome information. I'm a part of a communications team at church, at our church, and I am working on building some custom GPTs to help us, particularly with some of our admin tasks and our content creation. And I was wondering if you guys could share a little insight there. We've got our first custom GPT created, and it's working great. It scans in our prayer requests so that and then transcribes them. That way we don't have to like go through and write because we're a pretty large church. And it's working really well and saving a lot of time, I think, with that. But we want to kind of take it to the next level and maybe create some additional custom GPTs. And one question that I had, because I was playing around with it and it was getting a little bit confused, but what would you say, and this is kind of a two-part question, is the best way for a custom GPT to learn your brand of the church and the tone of the church? Is that by uploading some sermons? Is that by taking some emails and different communication? And secondly, because different ministries really have a different tone based upon the audience that we are engaging with, what is the best way to keep it from getting confused on that? Is that to have a particular custom GPT for each of those ministries, or is there a way to do it all integrated into one?
Great question. Todd, you want to take that? You want me to take that one? Sorry, I get to pick on Todd once in a while.
He's messing with me. That's what he's doing. You guys, that's bullying, Jonathan. I love you anyways. Go for it.
No, I wouldn't mean to do that. That may have been last night's call when I pushed you into doing something, but not this call. Back to your question, Carla. Really good question. So to train an AI, what I recommend doing is, just like you said, uploading either some past sermon content and that type of stuff. I'm a big fan of specialists when it comes to GPT. So I'm going to tell you, I'm going to recommend each ministry have its own GPT. because I think that'll avoid confusion. Much like humans, very few humans are good at doing a lot of things. Most of us are really good at doing a couple of things. At least that's all I'm good at doing is a couple of things. And if I try to be the rest, I'm not near as good at those other things. And GPTs I find they similar, and they get confused the more elaborate they get. So I would recommend in your case, you probably need a church GPT, one that represents your church, the physical location, the beliefs of your pastors, the beliefs of the denomination, anything that resounds with that church. And that needs to be kind of if we look at it in an org chart, that's the top. Then below that, I would probably have each of your various ministries having their own GPTs. The neat thing you can do is you can do what's called stacking. So you can begin a conversation with your church organizational GPT, and then you can say, we need to really, now this is a kids worship thing. So we need to bring in the kids worship GPT into that. And it now will have access to all of the information in that conversation about you. It won't necessarily have all of the information in the church GPT, but it will have all the information in that conversation, which can be really helpful. So I would build out a church GPT, and then I would do a summary of that for each of your ministries as it relates to the ministry so that they know they have the right biblical background or theological background that you're looking for. But the big benefit you'll get there is the ability to cater their audiences. So the children's ministry one can be very focused on parents with children and those children, as opposed to me as a grandfather who's probably not, I'm interested because my grandkids are interested, but I'm not that target audience. You might have a men's ministry one, and knowing that it's going to be speaking to the men, and a women's ministry, a youth ministry, a middle school, a high school, college, whatever. I would definitely create separate ones for each of those ministries that you have.
Got it. Thank you.
Absolutely. Great question. Glad you asked, Carla. Thank you. Thea, you're up next. What's on your mind, Thea?
Hey, Jonathan. This is my first, well, actually, technically my second webinar or training. The first one was the one you just did a couple hours ago.
Oh, well, thank you. I'm so glad you spent so much time with us today. Thank you.
Yes, and thank you for creating the community in like the Facebook group. I've been following for months, but really not super engaged until the last 2 months or so. But I've gotten so much from it, even before I realized you were a Christian. But you have. I just want you to know you definitely have the heart of the Father. You could just tell by the
Well,
way that
thank you. It means the
created
world to me.
it's very, you could tell like you operate from the kingdom, and I really appreciate your model and the way that your generosity and just the way it's managed. It's such a beautiful space. It's like one of the few places on Facebook that I love going to every day, and it's like it's between you and another person, it's helped reawaken the little kid in me that always had all these things I wanted to do, and being very neurospicy. I was just like, God, I don't want to leave this earth without actually putting these things into action. And I had all these ideas, and being a musician as a child and an adult, and then leaving that behind, now having all these apps to create songs and reimagine scriptures in so many ways. It's just like I'm having so much fun every day, and so I have to thank you for your role in that part. And I definitely
Well,
think God
thank
is
you.
using you AI tool to help us. So but my question is, well, one more thing. I have a heart for the youth, and it
Hmm.
does bother me that so many Christians are so afraid of the AI stuff, because I'm like early 40s, and it bothers me that everyone is so afraid. And I'm like, do you guys realize the other kingdom is grabbing the kids because they're out there and they're using it? And if we're all afraid of it, we're just throwing them to the wolves. Like, why don't we learn to use this stuff, because we need to be the light in the dark space, the dark place.
Yeah.
I just love what Todd said earlier about how he lets his daughters use it to do Bible studies, because we need the light out there. So
No doubt.
Thea, if I could jump in on that real quick, when you're talking about people who are afraid of it in your church, some of the professional coaching and consulting that I do, I always encourage people to have messy conversations. Like, okay, Jonathan, you're really afraid of AI. Why are you afraid of it? Well, because it's evil and it's bad and whatever. Okay, well, let's sit down and actually explore it together and just like get into it. Let's roll up our sleeves and get into it a little bit. And I would encourage you, if you have the mindset and the personality to have those types of conversations, maybe just go to lunch with somebody and bring your laptop and say, hey, let's try it out together and see how evil or not evil it really is. But I'm sorry, back to your question. I didn't mean to cut you off.
Oh no, it's okay. I agree. The ironic thing is I have been out of the physical church for a long time, for a while, and I've been building a lot of online ministries, and a lot of people used to judge me for that. But I grew up in a very like apostolic Pentecostal denomination for a long time, and it became kind of like a cult. So I understand that like very committed three, 4, 5 times a week I was in the physical church for like 17 years. But
I
like,
appreciate
so
you
that's why I
sharing
have
all
a
that.
heart.
Yeah.
Yeah,
What
I
question
just
can
have
we
a
answer for
heart
you?
for I'm sorry.
No, no,
Yeah, the
I want to
question
make sure
is,
we respect everybody else. So I want to get to, I love what you're sharing, Thea, but what can we do to,
I'm
or
sorry.
what? No, you're good. You're good.
My question is, when you're working with clients, do you have multiple ChatGPT accounts for
Mm.
managing them without having the memories cross? Or like, how do you manage multiple clients when you do wanted to save some memories, but you don't want them to get crossed?
Great question. So I create custom GPTs for each of my clients. That way I know that I'm not crossing memory and I turn memory off inside of ChatGPT. So if you were a client of mine, Thea, what we would do is I would have everything about you saved inside a custom GPT so that when we needed to do content for you or strategy or anything like that, we were able just to load that up and have everything there. But I actually, because of that role, not everybody agrees with me, but I have memory turned off on my computer just because I don't want that cross pollination, so to speak.
Okay, so when you're saving it in the custom GPT, you can still have multiple conversations in that GPT,
Hmm.
or
Oh
is it
yeah.
just one big
No,
conversation?
you can have as many conversations with it as you want, and even better, I can share it with other team members or even share it with the client if I choose to.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah. No, good question. Thank you for sharing so much. I really appreciate your kind words, Thea. That means a ton to me, and I'm so glad that we are able to spend a few hours together today. That's great. Bob Roman, nice to see you, sir. What's on your mind? Oh, you were muted, Bob.
I use ChatGPT mostly after I've got Claude to help me with Bible lessons and teaching and those kinds of things. So, and Bible research and apologetics and defending positions, things like that. And I post on Facebook a lot and sharing Christ with different people, see if I can get some reactions. So it is
Hmm.
a great tool. My question is almost what Todd was talking about. Um, how do you I'm getting a lot of resistance on AI. And by the way, I just want to ask one quick thing. Jonathan, can you send me the information about the guy that's working with dementia?
Yeah, I can get you
Because,
his information. Absolutely.
yeah, my mother had dementia, and I went to a brain class last night. And uh, when you said that, I was like, ooh, I want to hear about that. But my
Yep.
question
No,
be
I'll
towards
send that
Todd
to
or
you.
both of you is like, maybe both of you, how did Jonathan persuade Todd to at least consider using AI? And then Todd, how did you react to that? And I'm getting a lot of resistance. Close friends saying, stay away from it. And
Mm.
I'm using it as a tool. I don't feel the Holy Spirit convict me of sin. Um, I'm using it to study the Bible, and I have an attention deficit. I'm also bipolar, so I'm using it to manage the disorganization and trying to get thoughts together. And Jonathan knows about that, but it really helps you focus, helps you hone in on what it is that you have to get done today without getting distracted. The topic Claude helps me a lot. So there's something to say how AI helps us who are struggling mentally, but in the church, this pushback, this resistance, it's almost like um, I got a Model T Ford in the barn, and everybody's got a horse, and no one wants to see my Model T Ford.
Mm.
I
Mm.
guess I would ask you first, Bob. And again, this is going to be a personality thing because not everybody can have what may be a confrontational conversation. And if you are not that person, maybe find somebody who can have those confrontational conversations. And when I say confrontational, I'm not meeting an argument or a heated debate or anything like that, but just somebody who is comfortable having a conversation with somebody who disagrees with you. And going back to my story with Jonathan at the very beginning, about a year ago, Jonathan and I have, I think, in some respects, kind of a big brother, little brother relationship. So there was lots of teasing and lots of poking. And
you can figure out which one's big brother and which one's little brother, but
and we had fun with it. But every time I would say, oh, zombies, laser eyes, whatever, Jonathan would say, well, not really. Can I show you? And finally, one day I was just, it was kind of like a conversion. It kind of, okay, Jonathan, go ahead. I'll listen. And he showed me something. And he used something that I was struggling with or working with or trying to figure out. And he was like, watch how fast this happens. Click. And it was like 2 seconds later, there it was. And I was like, huh. And then he was like, why don't you try it? Okay. Now, that is not a Sunday getting coffee and cookies after church conversation, because you've got 5 to 10 minutes before you got to run off to pick up your kids from nursery or go to Sunday school or whatever it is. But that is like, hey, can I call you tomorrow evening about 7 p.m. and we can have a conversation? Or, hey, you want to come over for lunch? I want to show you what I'm doing with this. And if you feel that I'm still sinning, then we can have a conversation about that. And like, call the baby ugly. That's a phrase that I use in my consulting. Call the baby ugly. If you think I'm sinning, point out my sin. Well, I just don't like it. You may not like it, but is it sin? And if it's not, then maybe it's a tool that I can use. Maybe you don't have to use the tool.
I think Todd froze on us. It reminds me, Bob, of a discussion I had with a pastor when I was actually in high school about some things may be a sin for me, but are not a sin for you. And I don't want to get into the theology of that, but one of the things that he was a pastor that smoked, and a lot of people gave him grief for that. Now, that wasn't as big a deal in the 80s as it might be today, but that was an issue. And he just said that, he didn't believe it was an issue, and therefore he was comfortable with it, but he wouldn't smoke around other people because he was careful about that. But I think, AI tends to be something like that as well. My experience is that without question, every person I've talked to that is afraid of AI has not used it or has not used it very often. They've, without exception. And even Todd, as he shared, that's how I quote unquote converted Todd to AI, is I just started showing him stuff. I didn't tell him, kind of like we're trying to do here. I'm not trying to tell anybody that came in thinking that AI was bad that you're wrong, but I am trying to share that, hey, there's an option here that maybe you should take a look at, because I think there's some good ways it's being used. So I hope that's helpful.
Yes, that is. And I know I was looking for some consulting. You said, find your first client and test it out. And I actually did. And this is our second meeting. It was yesterday. And I sat down with him and had him use Perplexity and Anthropic Claude, and he's just beginning to put a training course together, because he's like me, teaching the baby boomers. He teaches residential independent people who live in residential care centers how to use their iPhones and iPads. And so now he's trying to create a course about security and safety online. So then I said, well, why don't you pay me $20 an hour? I think you told me to charge him. So I charged him $20, and he's a good friend. And I said, well, we'll spend 2 hours. I'll charge you $20 and I'll show you some things. And now he's like, I can't believe I create this course in 3 seconds. And I said, well, how long would it take you to create that PowerPoint presentation? It just created it in, I don't know, 3 minutes, 2 minutes maybe at the most. And he was just totally amazed. So once you give them an opportunity to use it for something practical, I need to build this course for these senior citizens, then the light came on.
Yeah, and I think that's the big part. It's don't tell, show, demonstrate.
Right. Yep.
Yeah. Awesome. Bob, thanks so much. I appreciate that.
Thank you. And then send me that information too.
All right, we will. Thank you. All right, next we're Chris. You're up. What's on your mind, Chris?
Yes. First is, Jonathan, when you come to Belgium, you're invited.
Oh,
so
thank
that's
you.
a very good thing.
Thank
And then
you.
I
Oh,
want to share something for you. I am an
please.
historian and I like antiques, like your wife. But one of the greatest antiquaires in Belgium has become a priest. And he has made a website that is Christian art. And there you see, it's free, it's totally free. And there you have the following thing: grow closer to God through the beauty of art and the gospel. Subscribe to our free daily gospel reading and art reflection. So you have daily gospel reading and you have art reflection, a work of art. And he gives then his antique view of it and also art historical view. So it's a very interesting thing. It's totally free. If you like it, I will set it in the chat.
Yes, please do. That would be amazing. Thank you.
That was it. Thank you.
Oh, Chris, so good to see you, and thanks for joining us all the way from Belgium. Love to see that. That's amazing. All
You will
right,
see
next,
me every time almost. Yeah.
I love it. Thank you, Chris. That's amazing. All right, next we've got Jay Alex. Jay Alex, what's on your mind, sir?
Hey, Jonathan, great conversation. Thank you, guys. I'm already using GPT to do like devotionals for my worship team. And I'm glad you guys are talking about this, but you might have already said this, but I'm really interested in how to create custom GPTs like you do for your consulting clients. And I was wondering if you have some sort of resource where I could learn how to do that.
I do. Yeah, I've actually done a number of courses on that. I'll send you a link in a minute, and you can take a look at that and see if anything is of interest to you there. I'm not here to sell my stuff, but yeah, I do. That's my business. Todd does coaching and leadership and mindset. I do coaching in AI and how to integrate that. And that's, well, one of the most common topics is how to create those custom GPTs. So yeah, I'll be happy to share that with you.
Awesome. Yeah, definitely. And lastly, it's more of a personal question. I know you shared about ADD and how you were diagnosed just a couple of years ago. And I feel like I have similar symptoms. I haven't been diagnosed, but I don't know, just kind of where would you point me to kind of find out, how I could possibly get help or treated for something like that?
So at the time, I've been a big believer in my whole life with coaches. It's one of the reasons I hired Todd originally, is I just believe in coaches. I figure if, Michael Jordan, who was one of the best basketball players ever, needed a coaches in order to help him be better, that I certainly need them to be a better husband, to be a better father, to just be a better man in general. And so I've always been that. And at the time, I was actually meeting with a Christian psychiatrist. And we just would chat about life and that, and we'd been meeting on and off for about a year. And at one point he said, would you be willing to be tested for ADD? And I'm like, sure, I don't care. And he said, I think you probably have that. And I'm like, okay, whatever. I'm 43 years old. It's a little late now to do anything about it. And so he did at the time. I would encourage you, same type of thing. Look for, a psychiatrist in the area, maybe a counseling center, and just reach out and let them know that, hey, based on chatting with some people and observation, I think I may have ADD or ADHD, but the common term they use now is the neurodiverse is the term they often use, and say, I'd love to have somebody, evaluate me and determine if I am. You should be able to have that test done and evaluation for a couple $100. And the value that I found in that more than anything else was understanding that that's how God had created me, and that now I could lean into that. And it was that discovery for me that for the first time in my career, instead of focusing on trying to be all the things that I thought I should be, I was able to go, never mind, God created me to be really good in these areas, and I really stink at this area, like paperwork. So instead of trying to be good at paperwork and good at task management, two things I'm never going to be good at, I just embraced that, I'm never going to be good at that. So I'll lean into the stuff I'm good at, and I'll find people that are good at the other things and have them help me in those areas, because there are people that are really good at task management and paperwork that love it, unlike me, who gets sick when I have to do it. So, there's just different ways to do that. So I would encourage you to reach out to like somebody like that and see if they could add some value to you.
Yeah. Awesome. Thank you, man. That was
Thank
very
you.
helpful. Yeah.
Thank you
Appreciate
for love to have you here. That's great. All right, Cindy, I think you will be our last question day. We've got a hard out in about 2 minutes, but Cindy, it's so good to see you as always. What's on your mind?
Well, I just have to say for Alex and anybody else, I know it's not for you to sell your courses, but I tell you, anybody, his classes are incredible. You learn so much. It's just beyond. And even if you don't take a course, at least join his group. It's just beyond. It's really good. So that's all I wanted to say.
Well, Cindy, thank you for the kind words. I appreciate it. Todd, as we have just a couple minutes left, would you be willing to close us out in a prayer as we head out?
Absolutely. Absolutely. Let's pray. Dear Heavenly Father, we thank you for this time together, this group of believers from all over the world. And we know that your word says that where 2 or 3 are gathered in your name, Lord, you will be there with us as well. And we thank you for that, and for your presence here. Lord, help us to understand how we can use these tools to further your kingdom. And every tool comes with a price, sometimes positive and negative. And Lord, we pray that you will help us to see the positive aspects of using this AI tool to further your kingdom, to make ourselves better for you. And it's not about us, it's about you and your word and your son. And Lord, as we celebrate Easter here, just coming up in very shortly, we thank you for the sacrifice of your son, his resurrection. And really, that's kind of the reason we're all here today. And we thank you for this opportunity to gather together to discuss you and how we can further your kingdom. So we thank you for Jonathan spearheading this discussion and his making him the way that he is so that he can be one of the best at this tool that is out there. And we thank you for him and his presence and for everyone on this call. In Jesus' name, amen.
Amen. Everybody, thank you so much for joining us. I cannot describe how much I would love to know if you would like more of these discussions on that. Would you just throw a 1 in the chat for us to let Todd and I know this is valuable? We would love to have more of these. I'd love to get 1,000 people on these calls sharing tools and that. We are probably going to be setting up a free community, just so you guys know, where we can start sharing some of this stuff. So just be on the watch out for that. And we'll have the replay sent out to you guys here this evening. Thank you much. God bless everybody. And we will see you soon. Bye.